Greetings and welcome to another edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. Discovery Season 3, Episode 2 has been released, entitled That Hope Is You, Part 2, and I want to get straight into my review. We start off with the Discovery about to crash land on the planet because they don't have any control over the ship after coming out of the wormhole. And, you know, I'm not sure I totally understand why that would be. Like, why would coming out of a time travel wormhole necessarily mean they didn't have control over anything? I guess because the trip damaged systems or drained certain, energy sources or fried certain things. I guess that makes sense, but I don't know. I would have believed it if they hadn't been damaged coming out, but of course, that would have given them no plot for the episode, so there you have it. Saru tells Detmer to hold the ship steady as they've crash landed on the planet and they're literally skidding across the surface. And I was thinking, yeah, how is she supposed to do that? The ship's controls and systems only work in a non-gravity environment, and certainly not while they're being dragged across the surface of a planet. So why would he even bother to? It's not a car. Why would he bother to tell her that? There's no way she can control what it's going to do. But anyway, that was a minor thing. So right after that, the crew is assessing damage as best they can from the bridge, and Saru is, assessing what he wants to do. And at one point he says, the crew will work in teams of 2 until internal communications are restored. And I wasn't really sure why he did that, because they have handheld communicators and those should still work because they're not dependent on the internal communications system of the ship, as far as I'm understanding things. But I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just thought that was weird. And then as they're going about, assessing the damage and repairing the ship, Saru is talking to a couple of crew members, including Tilly, and Georgiou walks up, and for some reason they decided to show that she had like a bit of human remains on her shoe, which is bad enough. And then Tilly goes, you have some Leland on you. And I was thinking, really? Like, okay. This would be, first of all, it's not funny because we've seen that before, right? Now in Star Trek. But how many other movies or shows have you watched where somebody gets exploded or somebody barfs or whatever, and another character says, oh, you have some so-and-so on you? So it's an old joke, number one. Number two, what place has that got in Star Trek? That's something you would see like on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or I don't know, any number of other sci-fi shows where, the people involved aren't supposed to be professional people. A good example, now that I think of it, was Ash versus The Walking Dead, right? That's the kind of joke you would see on a show like that. Why are they doing that stuff on Star Trek? I don't understand it. It's not that I dislike a joke like that, but it's out of place in Star Trek. It's one of the problems I have with this show. Then we see the Doctor and his partner in sickbay, and he tries to get him to say a certain phrase to test whether or not he's mentally there. And he says, my partner just rescued me from a coma and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. He tells him if he can say that, then he's in good shape. But, I don't know why they would use that. That's an old phrase. I mean, it's old even in 2020. It's not something we really do anymore. It was a popular joke on t-shirts and other souvenirs in the 80s. So I just don't know why they would use that. But I suppose it's not a big deal. Then the doc says that if, his partner doesn't comply and behave himself or whatever in the sick bay, and willingly undergo his treatment, he's going to get Saru to ground him, which I didn't understand because last time I checked, doctors just have that authority to order other officers to, undergo their treatments and to not leave sick bay and so forth. even if they outrank them technically. So wasn't sure why he would say that, but whatever. And then the doc kept walking around the ship in his bloody jacket like the whole time, and I didn't understand that. I mean, I know they showed Kirk walking around with the bloody tunic in Star Trek 2 for a while, but the whole episode he's just still walking around in this bloody tunic. I'm thinking, or jacket. I'm thinking, why? Even if he didn't change the jacket, why would he just take it off? Like, I don't know. It just bothered me. Then they're talking about how I guess Tilly brings up that the other ships are able to go to warp without dilithium. Well, she doesn't say that. She says they're able to go to warp, and we know that they don't really have dilithium. So how are they going to warp? And if they can, why is no dilithium a problem? I don't know. Maybe the assumption I'm making is flawed. Maybe they are using dilithium, although she says she can't detect any. So I don't understand that. Again, in the first episode, Book talks about some other propulsion methods, slipstream and so forth, but I didn't know that that was warp. So I'm a little confused, but I might just be having, language problems here. It might not be an actual plot discrepancy. Saru, in another meeting that they have before he and Tilly, go out and start walking around the planet, he says that they, have to play it low key because they have to protect the info that the ship has on and that the crew has on past events. And I wasn't sure quite what he meant. I'm guessing maybe he means that they have to make sure that even in the future, no one else gets the sphere data, but he doesn't really come out and say that. So I don't know. I didn't really understand that. A moment later, we have George Yu basically saying that Tilly is useless, and Tilly is about to say the F word, but she stops herself. She stops short of saying the F word, and they left it out. So I thought that was interesting because in the past, they've had no qualms about using it. Some fans don't like it, so maybe they're changing their ways. Maybe they're not going to keep using the F word this season, but who really knows? I just thought it was interesting. Then we're back in engineering, and there's a conversation going on there, and there's the guy in the background shoveling up. I can't even just. So many of the things that happen on the show leave me almost speechless because I don't know where to begin with how stupid it is or how wrong it is for Star Trek. He's literally scooping up Leland's greasy bits off the floor of the spore chamber. And they show it, of course, up close. I thought that was unnecessary to show, and I don't understand why they don't have some kind of beam or ray or process that would just remove this material from the spore chamber without a person having to physically scoop it up with a shovel. Like, what is that about? Like, Jimmy Doohan used to joke on the convention circuit that, there are no toilets on the Enterprise, and how did they deal with number 2? And he says, well, you have to remember, we did have phasers. So, I just don't understand. It's gratuitous. It's there for comedic effect or for gross out effect. I don't really know what the effect is supposed to be. And again, it's something that you would see in a show like Ash versus the Evil Dead or, some other sci-fi show. It's not what Star Trek doesn't do that stuff. So I don't understand. And then, of course, she says, she calls the guy hazmat, And she says, "Clean up on aisle 5," which, again, clean up on aisle 5 is a 20th century expression, and it doesn't. I don't see why that phrase would last into the 23rd century, but I don't know. That's another thing that Star Trek doesn't usually do, right? Keep using 20th century expressions. Yet the people who write this show and Lower Decks cannot stop themselves, and I don't understand it. It doesn't make the show bad, but it's I don't know. Yes, it does. It does make the show bad. What am I saying? So I just wish they wouldn't do that. Then Saru and Tilly leave the ship to go on walkabout, as it were. And I thought that was weird because the ship's comms aren't working. So why would they do that? I mean, I guess they have to go out to repair they're going out for the purpose of repairing the thing they need to restore comms, but at the same time, they don't have a way to communicate with the ship if something goes wrong. So I guess my question is, why did they go with only 2 people? Why didn't 4 or 5 people go? And does that have to do with Saru saying we're trying to keep a low profile? Okay, but it doesn't make sense. You're in a situation where you don't have any tactical awareness at all. You're going in blind. So, like, well, I just didn't get that. Then we get to see Linus. Woohoo for Linus. And this time he's not sneezing all over everyone. That was pretty cool. Then we go back to Tilly and Saru, on walkies on the planet, and they see a man walk up to a certain spot and then poof, disappear. So what do? They walk over to that same spot and just poof, disappear without knowing where that guy went, right? Without knowing whether he was able to survive the process because of something he's wearing or something in his blood or whatever. And they don't know that they're not going to get killed by the process. They don't know that they're not going to wind up in a cell. They don't know where it's going, in other words, either. So I just thought that was really stupid. They don't even assess it at all and say, I wonder what's going to do. Shall we take the chance? Well, I don't detect with my tricorder any XYZ, or I do detect XYZ, so it should be safe. None of that. They just walk right up and zap to wherever it's going. Perfectly normal. Not. And then when they're being held at phaser point or gunpoint by the miners, Saru and Tilly are trying to prove that they're Starfleet officers, and Tilly says that she volunteers some information that she hopes will prove that they are, and she says Starfleet Regulation 256.15, which requires Starfleet officers to behave in a way befitting of a Starfleet officer at all times. Which I found interesting because they constantly behave in ways that aren't befitting of Starfleet officers on this show. And they definitely do it constantly on the lower decks. So I guess, that's a regulation that's no longer present in the post-Nemesis age. I mean, I've only been saying, and other people have only been saying, since Lower Decks premiered, that these people don't act correctly for Starfleet officers. And now we know there actually is a specific, we assumed there was, but now we know for sure there is a specific regulation that says they're supposed to behave like officers. And we know what number the regulation is. So I don't understand. Then we see the villain of the piece, played by Jake Weber, who played the husband on Medium. He's been in a bunch of other things. He was on the train-related show with Anson Mount, and I can't remember the name of it. So I will put that up over here. Hell on Wheels. I don't have to put it up now. It was Hell on Wheels. He was in that. He played kind of a jerk in that as well. But I thought he was excellent in this. I didn't like him on Hell on Wheels playing the heavy, the sort of bad guy, but he was great in this, I thought. So that was good. he figures out that Saru and Tilly are time travelers because he says, you know, you would have been able to fix this yourself if you had updated tech to work with. And he combines that information with the fact that he had read gamma radiation or whatever it was. And he puts two and two together to realize that they're time travelers. Now, the miners didn't have that information about the radiation or the waves or whatever it was, but they should have realized that they didn't have any advanced tech. So why is that? They can't be from this time period. Or there's got to be some other explanation. So I don't know why they didn't sort of suss that out, but anyway. Then the miner gets shot. Cal, the guy that was helping Tilly, gets shot and rather gruesomely killed by the Weber character, which, oh man, like really, they had to kill him. Cal, we hardly knew ye. Then, of course, they start talking about how the parasitic ice is going to consume the ship, and I'm thinking, parasitic ice? What the hell is parasitic ice? Why do they have to call it that? If you've ever watched Deadliest Catch, you know that when these ships are in the Bering Sea in the coldest time of the winter, that ice just forms on stuff and makes operating the ship really difficult. And they can get trapped in, you know, an ice patch. They can literally, the ice literally freezes and can trap them in place. So they have to constantly mash at the ice. Why did they have to say this was parasitic ice? Doesn't regular ice just freeze up on objects? Wouldn't that just have happened? Like, I don't know why they had to do that. It's parasitic ice, like what the hell is that? I don't know. Then Georgiou shows up, you know, and it's funny because I hate this character, but I love this character. She kicks ass, and there's just no two ways about it. Michelle Yeoh is an excellent actress. I just wish her English were a little better because sometimes her delivery is just a little bit off, and she says her lines in a cadence or in an inflection that someone who speaks English as a first language wouldn't. And it doesn't come off as strongly as it would by, you know, being said by someone for whom English is the first language. So that kind of bothers me a little bit. It could be worse. She's pretty good, but if she could just be a little bit better at English, you know, speaking English, I'd like it a little better, but that's a minor thing. But when Saru is about to take advantage of the fact that Georgiou's about to kick ass, he tells Tilly, on my mark, get behind the bar. And I'm thinking, okay, so she'll have some kind of tactical advantage in, you know, the shootout or whatever that's about to happen. But no, he just tells her to get behind the bar so she can hide. I'm thinking, why? She's a Starfleet officer. She's not a, you know, a wilting violet, right? So what was that about? It can't be because she was a woman, right? Because this show particularly doesn't play that whole game where women are anything different than men, and Star Trek really never did to begin with, and certainly not in a Starfleet situation, right? Because they're all officers, they're all the same. So why would he tell her to go behind the bar if it wasn't so that she could have some kind of tactical advantage in the fisticuffs or whatever, the shootout that was about to occur? Why would she just hide behind the bar? I didn't get that. I could see him doing that to a civilian. I could see him doing that to Tilly if she were wounded and he didn't want her to get more wounded. But that didn't seem, it was out of place to me. I didn't get that at all. Why wouldn't Tilly be there to kick ass with them? Why wouldn't he want that? I didn't understand that at all. And then Saru with the head knife things, flying head knife quills things. What the hell was that? It was pretty cool, but isn't that something he might have used in previous situations? I mean, I'd have to go back and look, but like my thought was, well, that's new. Why haven't we seen him do that before? Was there never an occasion where that would have come in handy? I bet you there was. But that doesn't stop this show from using things that we've never seen before, even though we should have seen them before. Whether it was on a show that takes place years later or the same show, I don't know. But getting back to Giorgio, I didn't understand why she was so keen to take the side of Saru and Tilly, where clearly the Weber character had a certain amount of power. Her normal play would be to try to align herself with him and be on the power side and then take it over. So why she sort of immediately was against him and on the side of Saru and Tilly, I don't know. Maybe because she figured the long game was to, get the starship back up and running so that she'd be in a presumably better power position than he was in. But I don't know. It seems to me like she would have gone for the short term power grab in that situation. I don't know. It seemed uncharacteristic to me. The other thing that kept happening during this episode is that Detmer kept having seizures or moments where she was losing touch with her surroundings mentally. So I didn't know what that was about. That's a little concerning. I guess we'll probably find out more about that as time goes on. And then, of course, the big heroic ending where the ship is trying to lift itself off the planet and get out of the ice. And who shows up to help them but Michael Berman? Who else was it going to be? And she tells them that it's been a year since she first came out of the wormhole, that she's been waiting for them. So that was interesting. And it tells us that we might be in for some flashbacks in the coming episodes that show what Michael was doing during that year. But we might not. So who knows? But that could be interesting. I'm hoping there will be. I'm hoping they sort of, show us what she went through in that year. But we'll have to see. In the preview of next week's episode, it looks like they go to Earth. I don't know if I caught that right. Maybe I didn't. They mention Earth. So it makes it sound like, they want to go there, they try to go there, or they do go there. I don't know. That would be kind of weird. I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see. I don't know. Once again, I'm happy to say that I liked this episode. I know I said a bunch of stupid stuff went on during this episode, and it did. But it seems like the show is improving. Again, this felt more like Star Trek to me, and it felt more episodic. The story had a beginning, middle, and end. It was an encapsulated episode within the larger narrative of, we're in the future and all that. And that's what Trek should be. It should be encapsulated stories with a beginning, middle, and end. And if there's an overarching story in the background, fine. But it shouldn't have been this 15-hour movie that the first season was. I didn't like that at all. So I like this episode pretty well. I had the various moments where I said, well, that doesn't fit and that doesn't fit. But it didn't irk the crap out of me like every episode of season 1 and most of season 2. So we'll have to see where it goes, of course, but I'm optimistic that this season is going to be better. And like I said in the last episode of this program, once they start using the Discovery and they start showing how it has, tech that's too advanced for the period in which it was built, I'm going to have all kinds of problems. But we'll see how they deal with that. Who knows what they're going to say. So that's that. Let me know what you think about my review in the comments, or you can email me. I'm going to put up the email address over here. Email address. You can also find me on the Facebook. I'm under Barry P. Cook, and I'm in Providence, Rhode Island. You can even tweet at me. Let's put that up. You can send me a tweet on the Twitter. But I do want to get into some other stuff real quick before we go. Apparently, Discovery Season 4 is in production, and or it will be, I should say, in November. And that surprises me. They announced, Season 4, I guess, was going to come, but it's going to be in production next month. That surprises me because normally when a current season is airing, it's still in production. Normally, by the time we're seeing episodes, there are only a couple already in the can, and more are being made as some are airing. At least that was my understanding in the first and second season. So how the fourth season is going to be in production, in November, when we'll only be like 3 episodes in on season 3, I don't know, but that's supposedly what they say. I want to mention something quick about last week's episode about the season premiere. Book mentions the Gorn to Michael, and he says, the Gorn already destroyed 2 light years of subspace, whatever. And she says, the Gorn did what? And it was pointed out in an article online or a video that I saw. I can't remember, but somebody picked up on the fact that she shouldn't know who the Gorn are. That the original Enterprise first came across the Gorn like 10 or 11 years later, and Kirk's Enterprise. So how does she know what the Gorn are? Now, some people have said it's because Lorca had a Gorn skeleton in his office, and so maybe he ended up telling the crew or members of the crew in conversation what it was and what a Gorn is, but how would he know? And I guess that would be because he's from the other universe, where maybe Starfleet has already encountered the Gorn, but how does he have the skeleton? Did he bring it with him from the other universe? Did he kill a Gorn in this universe after coming over, and because he knew where they were? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But that's one of the reasons they shouldn't have done a prequel. They shouldn't have done a prequel. I will say that until forever about this show. According to media outlet We Got This Covered, CBS is thinking about maybe looking into kind of possibly perhaps doing a Deep Space Nine revival. I'm not sure how I feel about that. If you watched the Deep Space Nine documentary that was out a couple of years ago, there's a whole lot of time spent showing the creative team behind Deep Space Nine what they call breaking a new episode, like, coming up with a new episode and sort of outlining it and so forth. And it really made me wish that DS9 would come back for a season 8 under their guidance. How I feel about it coming back under CBS, I don't know. On the one hand, you'd love to see more Deep Space Nine, more Avery Brooks, more Nana Visitor, more Colin Meaney, more Michael Dorn as Worf. But even Michael Dorn as Worf presents a problem, right? Because he looks like the old Klingons. He doesn't look like the new Klingons. How are they going to explain that? Can they even do that? Because some people speculate that there's a 25% different rule and that he wouldn't be able to look like his original self unless they license that separately. And then how are they going to explain? So again, it's one of those things of going back to the past that's fraught with problems. It wouldn't be the past in the Star Trek timeline, but it would be, bringing back a prior thing. There are all kinds of things that went wrong on Picard where they basically changed his character, changed things about his character that had been long-standing facets of it. So I don't know about this, but this is the rumor. This is the speculation that's been brought to the forefront by We Got This Covered. So we'll have to see what happens. Anyway, that's really it for this episode. I'll be back next week for sure, if not before then. And at that time, I will review the next episode of Discovery. Hey, what do you think of my shirt? I got a shirt made with my channel logo on it. That's me, by the way. That's a depiction of me in a handmade Starfleet uniform that I made back in college. The channel icon is the actual photograph of me in that uniform. This is like a cartoon version of it, and it's the channel. It's an alternate version of the channel logo, and I've put it on a shirt, which is pretty cool. Oh, I also have the hat. The hat says Positronic Hypersonic. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, I've got merch, people. At least for my own use, right? But hey, if you want to buy some, I will sell it to you. The hat says Positronic Hypersonic. This is the channel logo. So there you go. But that's it. So I will be back with another video by next week, if not sooner. Until then, peace and long life.